Breaking news today, a Marine Corps veteran and devoted father was tragically shot and killed near the CDC in Atlanta, highlighting significant failures in urban leadership. This incident raises urgent questions about the true protectors of American families.
Hello, and welcome to That News Show, where we discuss the latest facts, fakes, and hypocrisy as reported by the legacy media. Let's roll the tape.
Fox News reports a tragic incident. A slain Georgia officer has been identified following a shooting near the CDC in Atlanta. Tonight, we dig into a story that is as heartbreaking as it is revealing. The officer, a DeKalb County police veteran and former Marine, was fatally shot while defending the public in a city where crime rates are escalating. This incident raises critical questions about our leadership's priorities. Why do our bravest suffer the greatest consequences while Washington bureaucrats focus on global issues and foreign conflicts? Shouldn't ensuring the safety of our streets come first? Who is truly protecting America? Time to dive in.
Patrick Joseph White. He lived in Kennesaw, Georgia, about 20-30 miles away from where we are here in Atlanta. He too has died, but it's unclear if it was self-inflicted or from police fire. That's all still under investigation. But right now, the community is mourning the loss of DeKalb County police officer David Rose. He was just 30.
The tragic loss of Officer David Rose starkly reminds us of the extraordinary risks our law enforcement officers face daily. Officer Rose, a Marine Corps veteran, devoted husband and father of two, soon to be three, heroically stepped up to protect his community amidst rising violence and policy failures that compromise public safety. His death highlights the critical need to restore respect for the police and to counter the divisive rhetoric and anti-police activism, fueled by progressive policies which leave our officers and communities vulnerable. The incident near the CDC is not merely a personal tragedy, but a symptom of broader failures in urban governance and federal oversight. The ease with which a gunman, driven by fringe beliefs and struggling with mental health, could heavily arm himself and target a federal facility in broad daylight raises serious concerns about our security protocols and the effectiveness of agencies like the CDC, which have recently been at the center of controversy. Instead of focusing on foreign conflicts, our priority should be demanding accountability and robust security for our institutions at home, ensuring our resources are first and main dedicated to protecting our families, schools, and officers. The mainstream media's selective outrage also merits scrutiny. If the story did not align with their preferred narrative, would it receive the same level of attention? All too often, the bravery of officers like Rose is overshadowed by political leaders in Democrat-run cities who deflect blame and promote failed reforms that empower criminals and weaken law enforcement. It's time for a serious, honest discussion about the consequences of these policies and the evident double standards in media coverage and political response. Officer Rose's sacrifice must not be in vain. His bravery should inspire a renewed support for law enforcement and a recommitment to genuine public safety reforms that prioritize American communities. As the investigation unfolds, the nation must demand answers, not just about what happened, but why our institutions and officers remain so unsupported. Our focus must shift back to protecting Americans at home, rather than being distracted by globalist agendas or foreign entanglements that divert attention from the pressing crises on our streets.
Rhodes was a DeKalb County police officer who ran toward the danger, and as a result of running toward that danger, he lost his life. What questions I have primarily is why? Why did this person go into the Emory University area right at the CDC there, shoot up the CDC, go into the CVS drugstore, and was found dead.
The tragic events of the CDC in Atlanta highlight the dire consequences of misguided policies and misplaced priorities that have affected many of our cities. When police officer Derek Rhodes courageously confronted danger in a university district and tragically lost his life, it underscored not only a profound loss for his family and colleagues, but also served as a grim reminder of the dangers fostered by lenient crime policies and dwindling respect for law enforcement. This is particularly evident in Democrat-led urban areas where reforms often weaken police authority, embolden criminals, and compromise community safety. This attack occurring at the threshold of a major federal institution urgently calls into question the security measures at our most sensitive facilities. The CDC, emblematic of federal authority and recently a focal point of controversy, evidently required stronger protection, especially considering the escalation in threats and the explicit warnings in this instance. Yet we witness a recurring pattern of bureaucratic complacency, a lack of accountability, and a disregard for the safety of American citizens and their protectors. The assailant's ability to accumulate weapons and execute a premeditated attack in broad daylight starkly criticizes policies that overlook mental health issues, ignore warning signs, and let dangerous individuals evade detection. The typical political response is superficial, dominated by renewed calls for gun control and ambiguous promises of reform, rather than confronting the cultural and policy shortcomings that enable such tragedies. It is imperative to demand genuine accountability from those responsible for public safety. We need to focus our resources on securing our domestic institutions rather than dissipating them on endless foreign interventions or global initiatives that fail to safeguard American families. Under President Trump's administration, there has been a clear prioritization of citizen safety over the previous administration's focus on political correctness and international commitments. Also, the media's double standard in coverage cannot be overlooked. When incidents contradict the preferred narrative, they risk being understated or ignored. The bravery of officers like Rhodes warrants national acknowledgement, not selective indignation or politicized neglect. We must engage in an honest dialogue about the tangible effects of failed policies and the critical need for restoring order, respect for law enforcement, and prioritizing American interests. As the investigation unfolds, the relevant questions are not only about how this occurred, but why our institutions remain so exposed, and what steps are necessary to rectify years of neglect and poor prioritization. The protection of our neighborhoods, schools, and public servants must take precedence over the agendas of global elites or the ideological experiments of detached politicians.
We want to have a federal takeover of the District of Columbia, and they are certainly opposed to that.
Okay, so we'll see what happens there, no doubt. I want to now move on to Cincinnati, Ted. This is where all...
Opposing a federal takeover of the District of Columbia is the right decision. Federalizing the district would undermine local governance, set a dangerous precedent for centralized power, and erode the principle of community accountability that conservatives have long championed. The district's issues, such as rising crime, declining public trust, and a culture of leniency, are serious and have worsened due to years of failed progressive leadership, soft-on-crime prosecutors, and policies that prioritize ideology over results. The solution is not to strip local residents of their autonomy or to expand federal authority. Fox News has thoroughly highlighted the failures of local leadership and the consequences of declining prosecution rates, including the refusal to prosecute a majority of gun offenders under the previous Democrat-appointed U.S. attorney. The network has effectively brought in legal experts and policy analysts, providing viewers with a clear understanding of the legal hurdles. A full federal takeover would require congressional action to overturn home rule, not just a unilateral executive order. This attention to legal detail helps correct the record and prevents the kind of sensationalism often seen elsewhere. Fox could improve its coverage by providing a more balanced perspective on the district's crime trends. While accurately reporting the spike in violent incidents and public frustration, it should also acknowledge that some categories of crime have recently declined from their pandemic-era peaks. This would enhance their credibility and demonstrate a commitment to fact-based reporting rather than simply reinforcing partisan narratives. The use of expert interviews and on-the-ground reporting has been a strength, but Fox should be more rigorous in fact-checking claims from all sides, especially when discussing the complex interplay between federal and local authority. Viz storytelling, such as maps of crime hotspots, timelines of recent incidents, and graphics explaining the legal framework of home rule, could further enhance viewer understanding and engagement. The push for a federal takeover is an example of the kind of big government overreach that conservatives, libertarians, and anyone who values local self-determination should oppose. The district's failures are a result of progressive mismanagement and a previous administration's unwillingness to hold criminals accountable, but the answer is not to impose more top-down control. Instead, we should empower local communities, demand real accountability from city officials, and support law enforcement with the necessary tools and authority, without sacrificing constitutional principles or expanding federal power at the expense of local rights. Republicans are right to insist on law and order and to expose the failures of Democrat-run cities, but the solution must be rooted in respect for federalism and skepticism of centralized authority. Fox News is at its best when it scrutinizes both parties and holds all levels of government accountable. By focusing on accuracy, balance, and transparency, the network can continue to set itself apart from legacy media outlets that often overlook inconvenient facts or push globalist, interventionist agendas. The focus should remain on restoring public safety, defending local control, and rejecting any move, no matter how well-intentioned, that would expand Washington's reach into the daily affairs of American communities.
You know, Brian, I don't know why they were let out of jail. This was a mob, and these are 6 individuals that were attacked by this mob could very well have been killed. I would hope that the large hammer of the law will come down hard on these various individuals who committed these heinous acts. And those videos will be used as evidence.
The economic impact of violent incidents reaches far beyond the immediate tragedy. For instance, when a mob attacks 6 people near a major federal institution, the repercussions are felt throughout the community. Local businesses see a drop in customers, employees are forced to shelter in place, and there's a palpable increase in concern for future safety. Such disruptions can spell financial disaster for small businesses through lost revenue, higher insurance premiums, and the need for costly security enhancements. Families suffer too, grappling not only with emotional trauma, but also financial hardships, particularly if they are related to law enforcement officers harmed in the line of duty. The demand for survivor benefits, counseling, and community support intensifies, pressing local governments to redirect resources to meet these needs. The broader economic landscape also suffers. The presenting urban violence and policy shortcomings in some cities escalate costs across the board. Property values plummet in areas perceived as unsafe, deterring business investment and stifling job creation. This results in reduced tax revenue and increased municipal budgets, disproportionately affecting working families by elevating household expenses and limiting economic opportunities. In terms of public services, the healthcare sector faces significant challenges. Hospitals near critical centers like the CDC have to divert resources to emergency responses, and public health agencies are compelled to invest in security at the expense of research and patient care. Educational institutions, including schools and daycare centers, are forced to upgrade safety protocols, which often involves costly renovations and hiring additional staff. These expenses ultimately burden taxpayers and consumers with higher fees and reduced services, adding to the general anxiety about daily life. Consider an infographic that illustrates the economic impact, a timeline of emergency spending, a map of affected businesses, and a bar chart showing property values before and after the incidents. Such visuals starkly display how violence and policy errors translate into tangible financial losses for communities. Household finances in affected areas are hit hard. Families face increased costs for home security, higher insurance deductibles, and disruptions to daily routines. The psychological impact can lead to greater healthcare spending and lower productivity, exacerbating the economic toll. When law enforcement is weakened by ineffective reforms or political maneuvers, it triggers a cycle of fear and instability that predominantly impacts ordinary citizens. These economic consequences are not inevitable. When local leaders and law enforcement are supported to act decisively, ensuring accountability and upholding the rule of law, communities can rebound and prosper. The difference is clear between cities that prioritize public safety and those that do not. Jurisdictions that emphasize law and order, avoiding federal overreach, demonstrate how stability and prosperity can be restored. For consumers and voters, the message is clear. Economic security starts with public safety. With robust law enforcement and protected communities, confidence is restored, investments return, and families can concentrate on building a brighter future. The ongoing investigations must yield answers and accountability, addressing not only the immediate victims but also every household affected by the cascading effects of violence and leadership failures. This leaves us with so many things to consider. The tragedy in Georgia serves as a stark wake-up call. We mourn the loss of a true hero, a Marine, a father, and a police officer. This loss underscores the chaos engulfing our cities, a situation exacerbated by failed policies and a lack of support for law enforcement. Previously, the administration ignored rising crime rates while key agencies like the CDC lost credibility. Under President Trump, we prioritize accountability, security, and respect for our protectors. It's crucial to question why we invest billions overseas when our own citizens are facing deadly challenges at home. The crisis is here, and it demands immediate attention. Leave a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. That's all for now.